Well, the worsening baby formula shortage is happening across the country, and while most families here aren't facing the empty shelves seen in places like Texas and Tennessee, the FDA says the supply has severely dwindled, and all over social media right now are so-called recipes for homemade formula or tips for substitutes used by parents back in the 20th century, leaving many parents wondering if that is their best option to feed their children. Well, the short answer is no. But for the longer answer on what to do instead, we turn to Dr. Pamela Schomer with UPMC Children's. Thank you for joining us, Dr.
Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. So the first question that we have, what are you hearing from your own patients right now who need baby formula?
Well, I think there are just a lot of parents that are fearful that they are going to face those empty shelves that we hear about. Like you said, luckily we're not seeing as much, but there is a need to maybe switch the brand of formula or just some of the substantial little portions, just being a little more flexible. But they're trying to plan. Most babies actually do need formula within the first year of life. So we're talking about a lot of families in our area that could be affected.
Yeah, and so doing things like following a 1960s recipe calling for things like evaporated milk or corn syrup, not a good idea?
No, definitely not a good idea. And there are a lot of other options out there that are better. Babies need a very tightly balanced supply of nutrients, and those recipes just don't meet that. And through the years, there have been babies that have had severe harm based on using some of those recipes, both in the short term and in the long term. So that is definitely not something you'll hear us want anyone to do.
Sure, and then some parents, may be asking, well, why not just add more water to stretch it out or use milk or toddler formula? What would you say to those parents?
Right. So it's the same idea. If you add water to stretch the formula, you're diluting out those nutrients and the babies just can't handle it. So you're actually cutting their calories and they can have harm from that. Babies' digestive systems just really can't deal with digesting whole milk, cow's milk, or some of the milk alternatives. And toddlers' formulas don't meet the requirements either. They're just not reviewed by the FDA. There can be different standards. And even though the labels look very close to what may be on the formula, it's just a different formulation. And so we really need to keep our children under the age of a year on formula or breast milk, which is the ideal food.
Sure. I mean, a lot of parents obviously in a very, desperate situation right now to find formula. What about ordering it online from places overseas?
So I think ordering online is reasonable if you're buying it from a reputable site that we know here in the United States. But when we start looking at formula from other countries, again, they're not FDA reviewed. You may not get the product you think that you're getting. If there's a recall or a problem, you won't hear about it. And it's just not a safe alternative at this point. So sticking to what we can find here in our country and sharing, making sure that we work. And there are some things that you can do to try. But ordering out of the country is not a good option.
Sure, which kind of leads me to my next question, which is what are the options for parents right now?
So I think the biggest thing is being flexible. You may be used to one particular brand or one particular color label, but babies can switch between formulas. They may initially get a little upset tummy or make a face because it tastes a little bit different, but they are nutritious. I think, again, call your pediatrician. They may have samples that they can share with you. They may have recommendations of what alternatives are best for your child. And then look within our community. We have lots of groups that provide food, like our Supplemental Nutrition or WIC, and they're really working with families to keep them with the formula that they need. There are also mom and parents groups that may have access. And I'm not a huge fan of social media at this point with the recipes for new formula or for homemade formulas. So if you get advice, check with your pediatrician, but they may also be able to do some formula sharing or know where some of those sources are.
Some really great advice, Dr. Schomer. We are running out of time, but thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us tonight. We really do appreciate it. I'm sure our viewers do as well.
Thank you for the invite.
Thank you. Have a nice one.